fifth grade, it's Mrs. Anglade, and today we're going to talk about equivalent percents and fractions. So not only do you want to have out your video notes that were given to you today, but you also want to have out your equivalent sheet, the equivalents with fractions and percents, and you also want to have out your worksheet on percents. It was a page that had 4 boxes with some shading on it, and you'll see it in today's video, so make sure that you have that out. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is we're first going to start with Guess My Rule. All of these rules that you see with these pictures are all 1/2. So we're going to take a look at the first picture with the apples and the bananas. So it says, I'm thinking of a rule. My rule matches 1/2 of the group. What could it be? Okay, so this one's pretty easy, right? You would probably say, well, 1/2 are apples. 1/2 are apples. You could also say 1/2 are bananas, right? So that's kind of how Guess My Rule is played. So it might be 1/4, or I might say 3 out of the 8. So right now I don't know what 3 out of 8 would match my rule. It could also be that 1/2 are red, 1/2 are yellow, that kind of thing. So there's lots of characteristics that could match that. Okay, what about this next one? So I just gave you a big clue about what could my rule be if my rule is 1/2. So let's see. 1/2 are fruits, right? So 3 out of 6, right? Up here it was 4 out of 8. Here it's 3 out of the total 6. It looks like 1/2 or 3 out of 6 are blue. Just like 1/2 or 3/6 is red, right? Okay, so there's lots of things that could match my rule, and your job is to figure out which one I'm thinking of. Okay, so now down here, let's see, now down to this last group we have, let's see, there's 10 items, there's 10 things, and half of them match my rule. Well, I would almost think that 1/2 of these things are yellow, but I can't say that because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that match. So that's 6 out of 10. That doesn't match my rule of 1/2, does it? Well, you know what I see? I see that 5 out of 10, or 1/2, are fruits. One half are like, so if 1/2 are fruits, stars, moon, sun. I think 1/2 or 5 out of the 10 are solar system items, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today, boys and girls, is equivalent fractions. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about percent, and what does it mean about percent, and why is percent sometimes better to use than fractions, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's see, our next page talks about all of those items were all equal to 1/2, right? All of the fraction in Guess My Rule was 1/2. But when you take a look at your groups, this was 8 items, this was 6 items, this was 10 items. How was my fraction always 1/2? How did this happen? So it says, how could this be? The size of the group changed, right? The size of the group. Hold on. Sorry guys, my pen wasn't working, so I had to kind of wake it up. So the size of the group changed. Okay, so let's think about some other equivalent fractions for 1/2. There's lots of things for 1/2. So I'm going to try to start you off with some denominators, and you tell me what some good numerators would be. So let's do 12. what would, if I had 12 items and I said 1/2 match my rule, what would you think it would be? Hopefully out there you said 6, right? What if I had 16? What if I had a denominator of 16? 16 being my total number of pieces, you would say 8. What if I had 20? You would say 10, right? What if I said 50? Ooh, that's a harder one. Now, how am I coming up with those numerators? What do you notice about 12 and 6? What do you notice about 16 and 8? 20 and 10? Hopefully out there you're saying it's half of each other. So what's half of 50? It's 25. And so what we're going to concentrate on today is what happens when the denominator is always 100? What's half of 100? It's 50, right? And that's why whenever I said 50%, what do you think 50% means? It means 50 out of 100, okay? So we're going to write some of these equivalent fractions on your equivalence page that you also got today. So make sure you turn to that. It looks like this, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at, so if I have a whole group, I have 100%, okay? So what did we say the percent for 1/2 was? The percent for 1/2 was 50%, right? But what did we say some equivalent fractions were? In our Guess My Rule, it was 3 out of 6, it was 4 out of 8, it was 5 out of 10. We said on our last slide 12 out of 16. 12 out of 16. Really, Mrs. Anglade? No. That's another equivalent fraction to something else on this board. 12 out of 24. I know we didn't say 12 out of 24. 6 out of 12 is what I originally wanted. Sorry, guys. Didn't we say 8 out of 16? 10 out of 20. Didn't we say 25 out of 50? So all of those are equivalent fractions. In fact, if you name any, this is how I do it. Name any even number, okay? As long as you can take half of it, that's your numerator is half of it, right? So name any even number, make it your denominator, and then take half of it, and that's your numerator. Okay, so we're going to be coming back to this page quite frequently, actually, because we're going to talk about, believe it or not, boys and girls, all the equivalent percentages for these fractions, 1/3, 2/3, 1/4, 3/4, and then we're also going to write down some equivalent fractions that we find for that. So make sure that that's in your journal because it's going to be an important page. The next thing that we want to talk about is we want to talk about this page called Name the Shaded Portion. Okay? So we have, if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. By a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's see, 10 rows of 10 would be 100. So we have 100 spaces on every one of these grids. So if I want to write a fraction, it's going to be out of 100 small of these little squares on here, right? Okay. So your job is to figure out, first of all, how many of these are shaded? How many little squares are shaded on here? And so pause it if you need to count how many squares, because I'm about to give you the answer, so pause it if you need to. But I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. I'm counting 25 out of 100 are shaded when you get finished counting. 25 out of 100. You could have counted by fives going in columns, right? Here was 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on. But most importantly, what percent would that be? Okay? If I have 25 out of 100, okay, hopefully you're saying out there, that would be 25%. That's the definition, boys and girls, of percent, is per 100, out of 100, okay? So let's take a look at this one, okay? So let's see. 25 out of 100. Let's come back to this one for a minute. What would another name be for 25 out of 100? Is there something that you see? Now this might be hard to see, but if I show you the first one, I bet you'll be able to see it. If I split these up into groups that look like this, boys and girls, and here's my next group, this one, and then this one, and then this one. Do you see what I'm doing? Do you see that the same number of boxes out of every one of these groups is shaded? For example, oops, hold on guys. Okay, so out of this box of 4, do you notice 1 is shaded? Out of this box of 4, 1 is shaded. Out of this box of 4, 1 is shaded, and so on. I could continue that pattern. So do you agree that another equivalent fraction for 25 out of 100 is 1/4? Wait a minute, 1/4, wasn't that on my equivalence page? Oh, it is, look. 1/4 is on my equivalence page. So let's write down that that's equivalent to 25%, because it was 25 out of 100. That's what percent means, per 100. And so we said it was 25 out of 100, and we also said that it was equivalent to 1/4, which we already had written down. Okay? So let's do one more together, and let's see if we can add to our equivalence page when we're finished with this. Let's see. I know it's out of 100. It's out of 100. It's going to take me some time to count these. Let's see. Well, you know what, boys and girls, what I find is that these were colored blue. Now these are white. And I want the ones that are shaded. So let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 are white. So let's see, if 25 are white, I think, my pen is acting up again, I think that 75 are shaded. 75 out of 100. So let's see, percent means 100, so 75%. And then I wonder if the same thing would work over here if I put these into boxes of 4. Oh, you know what? Looks like it's going to work. So there's my next 4. There's 4. There's 4. It's kind of opposite of what I found over here. So 1 out of every 4 was shaded at over here. It's 3 out of every 4 is shaded over here. 3 out of every 4. 3 out of every 4. And so on. So that's the pattern. 3 out of every 4. 3 out of every 4, and so on. So let's go back. Let's go back. So 3/4, there it is. There's my fraction 3/4. So we said it was 75%, and we said it was 75 hundredths. What I want you to do is I want you to go now, and I want you to do grids 3 and 4. Go ahead and pause it, and in a minute I'll come back and show you what my answers are. Make sure you fill out your equivalence page. Okay, so pause it. Okay guys, I'm back. So grid 3 and 4 might have been a little bit harder for you to see, but I tried to show you what I saw whenever I did this. I did see that there were 20 shaded, right? There was a row of 10 here, and I'm sorry, a column of 10 and a column of 10 made 20 out of 100, which makes 20%. But here's how I found 1 out of 5, or you could even say 2 out of 10. That would be an equivalent fraction as well. But I saw 1 out of 5 because I saw that this was a group right here. Half of this was a group, and that one column out of 5 columns were shaded. But I didn't even realize it when I wrote it down. It could also be 2 out of 10, right? 2 columns out of the 10 total columns are also shaded. Okay? That takes a little bit of getting used to, but it'll get easier as time goes on. And the last one, I saw 60 out of 100. I saw 6 columns, and then this could also be 6 out of 10. and it's 60%. So I'm going to run out of time here, so I need to make sure I need to add 60. This was also 6 out of 10 and